You were never allowed to be a child. While other kids were playing, you were managing your mother's emotions. While your friends worried about homework, you worried about paying bills. You became the parent before you lost your baby teeth. You learned to be responsible, capable, indispensable. Because if you weren't, everything would fall apart. And now, as an adult, you still can't stop carrying everyone else's weight. You're exhausted from a childhood you never got to have. Maybe you're the one who can't ask for help, even when you're drowning. You're everyone's therapist, problem solver, emergency contact, but you have no one to call when you are falling apart. You've been told you're so mature for your age so many times it stopped sounding like a compliment and started feeling like a prison sentence. You struggle to relax because rest feels like neglect. When you finally sit down, guilt creeps in. There's always something you should be doing, someone you should be helping, some crisis you should be preventing. You're the person friends call in emergencies, but you never make the call yourself. Maybe you resent people who seem carefree, who trust that someone will catch them if they fall. You never learned that trust. You learned that survival depends on your vigilance, your competence, your ability to hold everything together. And now, you're so good at carrying the weight that people keep handing you more. This isn't maturity. This isn't responsibility. This is called parentification. A family dynamic where a child is forced into a parental role, taking care of emotional or practical needs that should have been handled by adults. There are two types. Instrumental parentification is when you handled adult responsibilities, cooking, cleaning, paying bills, caring for siblings, managing household crises. Emotional parentification is when you become your parent's confidant, therapist, emotional regulator, or marriage counselor. Most parentified children experience both of these. You aren't given a choice. When a parent is overwhelmed, mentally ill, addicted, chronically ill, or simply absent, someone has to step in. And that someone was you. You learned that your worth was measured by your usefulness, that love was something you earned through service, that your needs were less important than everyone else's survival. Family praised you for being mature, responsible, capable, never acknowledging they were praising you for sacrificing your childhood. Parentification usually begins when the family system can't function without a child stepping up. Maybe your mother was depressed, drowning in her own trauma, and you become her emotional support. Maybe your father worked multiple jobs and you raised your siblings. Maybe there was addiction, illness, divorce, or poverty, and suddenly you were managing crises no child should comprehend. Sometimes it starts with small requests that seem innocent. Don't upset your mother, she's going through a lot. You're the responsible one. I need you to watch your brother. I don't know what I'd do without you. These statements sound like trust, but they're actually the transfer of adult burden onto child-sized shoulders. You might have had a parent who treated you like a peer, sharing adult problems, venting about their marriage, confiding their fears. It felt like closeness, like you were special, trusted, mature. But it was actually a boundary violation. Children need parents, not friends who dump their psychological baggage without consideration for development. Other times, the parentification was practical. You cooked meals, got siblings to school, cleaned the house, paid bills, translated documents, navigated adult systems. You become a surrogate parent while your actual parent was physically or emotionally absent. The cruelest part, you often loved the parent you were caring for. You weren't stolen by strangers. You were conscripted by people you needed to protect you. The role reversal happened in the context of attachment, which makes it nearly impossible to recognize as abuse. As a parentified child, you developed hypercompetence as a survival strategy. You learned to anticipate needs before they were expressed, solve problems before they escalated, manage emotions that weren't yours to manage. You become fluent in crisis management by age 10. You learn to suppress your own needs completely. Crying was selfish when mom was having a breakdown. Being scared was inconvenient when siblings needed reassurance. Having problems was a burden when the family was badly holding together. So you made yourself small, convenient, self-sufficient. Many parentified children become perfectionists. If you could just do everything right, maybe things would stabilize. Maybe your parents would finally be okay. Maybe you could earn the childhood you have been denied. But no amount of competence could fix adult problems. So you just kept trying harder. You developed what's called compulsive caregiving, an inability to stop rescuing people. It became your identity. You were the helper, the fixer, the responsible one. Without that role, who even were you? And here's the tragedy. These adaptations worked. You kept the family afloat. You prevented some disasters, managed others. But the cost was your childhood, your sense of safety, your belief that you deserve to be taken care of. Now, you're an adult who can't receive care without feeling guilty. When someone offers help, you deflect. When someone asks how you're doing, you say, "I'm fine," even when you're collapsing inside. Vulnerability feels like failure because you learned that needing anything made you a burden. You're attracted to people who need saving, partners who are struggling, broken, projects you can fix. Not because you're self-destructive, but because being needed is the only form of intimacy you know. Reciprocal relationships feel strange, unbalanced. You don't know how to be loved for who you are rather than what you provide. At work, you're probably overextended, underpaid, and over-delivering. You say yes to every request because saying no feels like abandonment. You're the one who stays late, taking on extra projects, covers for colleagues. Bosses love you, but you're burning out, and you can't stop. You might struggle with pleasure, rest, or anything that serves no practical purpose. Hobbies feel frivolous. Relaxation feels like neglect. You're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the crisis you'll need to manage, for the person who'll need you to sacrifice yourself again. You probably have trouble identifying your own feelings. You spend so long focused on everyone else's emotional state that your internal world becomes foreign territory. Someone asks what you need and your mind goes blank. You genuinely don't know what you need. You're tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix because you've been in survival mode since childhood and your nervous system never learned to rest. You have lost relationships with people who wanted to care for you because you couldn't let them in. You have sacrificed dreams because someone else always needed you more. You have built your entire identity around being useful, and now you are terrified of what happens if you stop. The child who never got to be a child is now an adult who doesn't know how to live without carrying someone else's weight. Parentification is a profound betrayal of the parent-child relationship. Children are meant to receive care, not provide it. When a parent leans on a child for emotional support, practical management, or crisis intervention, they are reversing the fundamental structure of attachment. The child's developmental task is to explore the world from a secure base, but parentified children never get that base. Instead, they become the base for everyone else. This creates what's called role confusion. Your identity formed around being needed rather than being valued for existing. You learned that your worth was unconditional, tied to your utility, your competence, your willingness to sacrifice yourself. This isn't love. This is exploitation wrapped in necessity. From a psychological perspective, parentification disrupts normal development. Children need to be self-centered, to have their needs prioritized, to make mistakes without catastrophic consequences. You skipped that developmental stage. You went straight from childhood to pseudo-adulthood, missing the crucial learning that you matter, that you deserve care, that the world can hold you. Your nervous system developed in a state of chronic activation. You were always scanning for the next crisis, always in caretaking mode, always responsible. This created patterns of hypervigilance and an inability to rest that persist decades later. But here's what nobody tells parentified children. You didn't save your family, you survived despite them. The narrative that you were special, chosen, capable, that was how the family rationalized using you. The truth is, they failed you, and no amount of maturity or responsibility on your part could change that. None of this was your fault. You were a child placed in an impossible position. You did what you had to do to survive, to keep your family intact, to earn whatever scraps of love were available. That child who cooked meals, managed emotions, solved adult problems, they were remarkable, but they shouldn't have had to be. The praise you received for being so mature was actually evidence of neglect. Children should be allowed to be immature. That's what childhood is for. Your hypercompetence wasn't a gift. It was a wound. Your inability to ask for help wasn't strength. It was a survival adaptation, and the hardest truth, you might still love the parent you had to raise. That doesn't mean what happened was okay. Love and harm coexist all the time. You can acknowledge that your parent was struggling while also acknowledging that what they did damaged you. You deserve to be a child, to be irresponsible, to make messes, to have needs without guilt, to be protected instead of protective. You deserved parents who could regulate their own emotions, solve their own problems, and create safety for you instead of demanding you to create it for them. The fact that you're still carrying everyone at work, in relationships, in every interaction isn't loyalty. It's unprocessed trauma. It's the role you learned so young that you don't know how to put it down. But you can learn. It's not too late to have a childhood. Not literally, but psychologically. It's not too late to learn that you matter beyond what you provide. Healing from parentification means learning something that should have been your birthright. You are valuable simply for existing, not for what you do, fix, or provide, just for being. This work requires help. Look for therapists who understand developmental trauma and family systems. Internal family systems therapy can help you reconnect with the child part of yourself that was never allowed to be a child. Reparenting work can teach you to give yourself what you never received. You'll need to practice something that feels impossible at first. Receiving. Start small. Let someone buy you coffee. Accept a compliment without deflecting. asks for help with something minor, your nervous system will scream that this is dangerous, selfish, weak. That's the old programming, it's not truth. Boundaries will be essential. You might need to stop being everyone's therapist, to let people solve their own problems, to say no without guilt. This will feel like abandonment. It's not, it's correction. The pattern can change. You can learn to rest without guilt, to have needs without shame, to be loved for who you are rather than what you provide. You can stop carrying everyone's weight. You weren't born to raise your parents. That role was thrust upon you, and you handled it with remarkable strength. But strength shouldn't have been required. Safety should have been provided. If this resonated, know you're not alone. So many of us were never allowed to be children, and we are still learning how to put down weight that was never ours to carry. If this helped, consider subscribing. And remember, you are more than what you can do for others. You always have been that.